All right, we are live on YouTube. Today is December 16th, 2021. This is our design and user experience meeting. And before we get into the agenda, we should go around and do some quick introductions. I'm happy to start. My name is Jen Lampton. I'm joining from Oakland, California, which is surprisingly sunny today because it's supposed to be raining all week. And I'm finding myself inexplicably happy about the sunshine. So that's where I am today. Let's see. Robert, do you want to go next?
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet in Altadena, California, where it is also sunny today after a rain and flash flood that kept me out of my studio a few days ago. And I will pass it to Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Greece, a bit distracted with work, and also the heater in the house is not working. So yeah, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So yeah, I'll pass it on to the next team.
My name's Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. I am in Deerwood, Minnesota, where it is not sunny and warm. We had we went from freezing temperatures a few days ago to 40 degrees to thunderstorms last night, and now 6 inches of snow and 10 degrees. So it's been up, down, crazy. It's just a mess outside. So I'm glad I'm in here working on background. Anybody, Joseph, are you there?
Yep. Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a backend developer. And yeah, it's actually been quite rainy and cold. It was below freezing a couple days ago.
Oh, wow. In Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess back to Jen or Tim, whoever's running the meeting.
Sure. Let's see.
Okay, you ready to roll?
Sure, I was just going to read the agenda, but if you've already looked at it, you're welcome to take over.
Well, not really.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we do have a couple of items that was posted in this week's discussion forum. I don't know if these are design related.
Well, the only one I know of is the jQuery one, which I think is more for the next meeting. Is there anything else? I'm trying to get there.
I don't see a thing for this week.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't see
actually, there's nothing there. So I know that Indigozella was posting something about the jQuery issue, but she must have posted it in Zulip, and I just got mixed up. It was in last week's forum.
Okay.
That would be a good thing to pull from Zulip.
Yeah, that's most likely a dev issue rather than a UX.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that there's some people in the room, though, that probably have some issues, don't you? Because we've got a number of things going on that would be related. We're 2 weeks from feature freeze.
Yeah, so I'm working on that, or I'm working towards the 1040 issue, the inline form errors. Bear with me.
Well, I'll mention one or two other things we could talk about. Well, you get that, Greg. We could talk about the nodeless pages. We have the PRs working now. Olaf gave a little bit of feedback. We have something to respond to. So we're going to need to get going on that if we want to. If we want to get that in this release. So that's one thing. And I don't know, another UX issue that I feel is really close, and Jen, you've maybe lost touch with, is the contextual link, which is now an admin link to. So I don't know if we need to talk about that in this meeting, but if anybody.
That actually touches on sort of a meta issue, because the same thing that happened there just happened on another issue, which is we have two PRs that propose different things, and more than one person likes A and multiple people like B, and how do we decide which to go with? I mean, with that one, it's actually pretty clear. It's like there's a pretty clear majority on one of them, but on one of the others, which is actually the issue, the PR of Jen's that I rewrote recently. That there's another PR, and some people have said I prefer that one. So, do we put for things like that? Do we put it out to get a way of getting some sort of formal vote, or is that or does it go to the PMC? Like, what's the process for settling that when it's fundamentally comes down to which do you prefer?
So both options have been okayed by core committers, because we should get the opinion of core committers code-wise. I mean, I'm aware of one of the issues. The one is with the contextual links for the layouts and themes, and that comes to pros and cons and breakages and things like that. So we have solid, sort of like a solid list that would help us decide, but I'm not aware of the other issue. Which one is that?
Yeah, the other, that's what I was saying, that's pretty clear cut. That there's a majority, and it's clear that that's kind of the way it'll go. The other one is this issue of reformatting the layout page, and to make clearer the distinction between layout provided pages and layouts that override an existing page or that wrap around an existing page. And in the original PR that I had put in, I had suggested we add some text next to the path saying module provided and layout provided. And then Jen had made an alternate suggestion and put a PR together that instead broke the layouts into two groups, a group of layout provided and the other. And I kind of like that. And rewrote it. And then just like yesterday, someone chimed. So I rewrote Jen's PR and said, can I get review and so forth, testing and review. Just rewrote it so it would pass tests and rebase. No changes to what it did. And then just recently, someone came in and said, "Oh, I like the former one better." So that then kind of, so now we've got people wanting both. How do we resolve it then?
Yeah, well, we don't have an official process for that, but my gut says that I like that one better. Won't cut it unless it says because and lists points. Like, so I'm very passionate about UX issues. So and I'm not saying that I always cut everything UX related, right? But in the example of the contextual links, because one of the solutions breaks things or has potential to break things, and it adds complicated configuration options in the user interface. Although I didn't like the other solution, I leaned towards the other solution now, because sort of like it sort of like doesn't have those issues. But with that one that you're saying, like, I haven't seen, I know which issue you're referring to, but I haven't gotten a chance to review it recently. Yeah, so we need a summary of pros and cons of both. And a summary can be done by a single person. And then if they miss something, someone can come and say, can you please add this to the pros and the cons? And then that helps us decide. Usually we don't, once we do that, things become clearer, and people, like in my case, change their minds. And so we reach a decision easily. like that.
I do think though that if we don't reach a decision easily, we have a process for that, and that would be like, okay, well, it looks like, 4 people like one and 4 people like the other, and there's pros and cons to both. Kick it to the PMC, and they'll make the final decision. So I don't think we should let it drag on really long. I think in this case, like, our goal is to get it in the next core release. So we should probably like make a summary, make sure there isn't an obvious winner from the summary, and then kick it immediately to the PMC and be like, we have some people that like each, and see if we can get a decision made on that quickly. Now, it does depend. PMC respond quickly, which they don't always do, but that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
My opinion on this, Robert, is it sounds like the division just sort of happened within like the last 24 hours. And again, I'm not up to date on this issue. So one is I just give we need a day or two to let it settle, or bring it to a meeting like this, right? That's the other thing, sort of, for me, before going to the PMC, like, be sure to bring it up in a meeting, because sometimes a discussion helps settle something that isn't getting settled in the in the issue queue, and then if that doesn't settle it, then the PMC.
Yeah, okay. I mean, and my interest here is not to try to drive one or the other particular solution. Just how do we get there? Because I'd really like to see one of the two in the next release.
Yeah, the other thing that would get this, like in this specific situation, would be user studies. So the problem that we're trying to solve is this UI is confusing to people, to newcomers. So if we can get people, and ideally people that are familiar with CMS, the CMS sort of like mentality, like using other CMSs, and then drop them in that UI and ask them questions, or do a specific targeted UX, because we're making a lot of assumptions, and we have been working with Drupal and Backdrop for like a really long time. So our assumptions might not be solving the UX problem that we're trying to solve. So we have 2 different solutions. Ideally, we should solicit help from these kind of people and say, hey, which one you found less confusing, right? And that should provide another sort of like a bullet point in the checklist, like newcomers found this more intuitive or easy, whatever. Having said that, I know that we don't have conducting usability studies takes resources, time, so we don't.
Which issue are we talking about? Is this 5077?
Yes.
Did you say 5077?
Yeah, 50. Yeah.
Side-by-side screenshots help as well.
I think Greg's thing about, what I often find is that coming in and summarizing an issue that gets divided like this, and making a clear distinction between what the options are, will let other people come in and weigh in, and then a consensus may form. So, and then, like I say, bring it up at the meeting. So I don't know, is something we're talking about right now? Can you describe in better detail? Because I still don't understand that. Or should we save this for the summary in the issue?
There's screenshots in there that might make it helpful too, and we could throw those in the summary and be like, here's the one, here's the other. It's just a difference in the way that stuff is organized on the page.
Yeah, I can like take the action to put screenshots and a new comment with screenshots, because it's a pretty long comment thread now.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, in the other issue, 2626, Doc Wilmot, I summarized things, and Doc Wilmot brought up a very valid point that, hey, if there's 2 pull requests, which usually, most of the times they work, having 2 pull requests and 2 sandboxes to compare. But Doc Wilmot says, if I'm testing, then, and I'm to use the PR works for me or RTBC tag, which one of the 2 PRs am I RTBCing? Perhaps if there's separate solutions, maybe instead of using needs code review and needs testing, maybe we could have the needs more feedback label.
Needs count selection.
or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
What
it's important for core committers to know like if one of them has been RTBC'd, that would be good to know. I think probably what we should do is have at any time one pull request that's like currently under consideration. And if someone recommends another one and everyone goes, oh, I like that better, we switch it. And so there's always one like lead candidate, and we can do that with the PR line that we used to use at the bottom of the issue summary where we indicate which one it is. I know it's really nice to have the GitHub links in the sidebar, but when there's more than one, that does become confusing. But I think if we have that comment in the top issue that's like, this is the one, then all of the labels for like works for me, whatever, can go on that one. And then if everybody's like, oh, I do like this new idea better, we can switch, remove the labels, and then retest, code review on the new one. And that way, if a core committer does get to the issue and there are two pull requests, it'll be really clear which one is the one that's ready for consideration, or we could close the other one if it's obvious that one's not getting.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that if there's two pull requests, it's not really ready for code review. We have to make a decision. So and I don't know that having two different issues solves the problem, because then actually I think that makes it worse, because now that's worse. So I would rather just say that as long as, that if somebody introduces a second pull request, that should be at the stage where we're still just talking about it and looking for a solution. And we're not really ready for a code review yet, right? And a code review doesn't really make sense to me until we've kind of decided and limited it to one.
Sometimes it comes after that, like the process could be, oh, I've got a thing, here's a pull request, here's a code review, wait, I have a new idea. And at that point, like obviously the RTBC stays on the first issue until people decide the new idea is better. But we should have a process for like, how do we officially make that change? And sometimes the person who wrote the pull request isn't around to close it. So you end up with these like lingering, and you have to wait for someone with more permission to do it. So it would be good to still have a way to indicate in the issue, like in that scenario, which maybe isn't the most common, but it would still be good to have the process.
You're right. I think that's happened. And I think normally that when that's happened, we just, whoever's leading the issue is kind of indicating which one they're working on. So maybe formalizing that a bit would help. But that's not the situation with the current one. The current one is we don't even know which direction we're going. So like doing a code review is maybe a little premature, right? We got to figure out which direction we're going.
So next step would be a summary.
Yeah, I would say that these things organically sort of like already happen. We don't have an official sort of like guideline, and sometimes the alternative solution is so drastically different that it does get split to a separate issue, but that's not the majority of the times that this happens.
I do think it would be good to have a process documented, especially for people who like don't know how this stuff works. If we could just be like, this is what we usually do. You mostly know how things work. But then, here's a scenario you've never been in before, where now there's two pull requests and I don't know how to do it. Just having some kind of guidance written there to be like, indicate the current one in the top issue, summarize the state of the two. If you still can't reach a consensus, kick it to PMC. Hopefully the summary and the indication of which one's preferred in the top issue is enough.
Where would we put something like this, or where would Robert go if he were looking for this guidance?
That was my next question. I think we do have a section on the docs site for using the issue queue.
Okay.
That might be a good place.
At some point, it was in the main site, but I think that we moved it. If we didn't, we need to.
Yeah, I think everything got moved over. It's just a matter of whether it got turned off on the main site. So here's the how to use the issue queue page. There's something about labels and milestones. We could add another sub page about specifically when an issue has pull requests.
Or some high level how to resolve conflicts, just talk through what we talked about already, or summarize the issue, bring it to a meeting, elevate to PMC, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the section
We have while we're just talking about
driving for driving pull requests toward RTBC. Let's see.
There's a skill in that, and some beginners don't. You know, when you're new to the issue queue, it's not always clear how you can be helpful. I think it's something you learn with experience, and anything we can do to help guide people at the beginning would be helpful. So there's,
Moving the processing.
while we're just talking about process, there's another scenario right now that I don't know if there's like a, it's the Herb's got two, and Robert's familiar with this one. Herb's got two competing pull requests. I think you commented on, no, it was Indigozella, that's right, that commented on that. Herb, it's for the adding classes to flexible layout templates. So there's like one issue to automatically add certain classes, then there's another one to add custom classes. And then there's even a third issue out there about adding IDs. And I feel like all of these issues are stalled because they're so interrelated that, you know, how can you make a decision on one if you don't know what's happening in the others? Yet they were deliberately broken apart because there was some disagreement. Like some people thought that we should add the automatic classes, but not the, so, but you know, now it's gotten broken apart, and Herb's got, you know, two different pull requests, and I'm not sure which one he prefers, and he seems to have indicated that it might be a one or the other. And so it's like, I don't know which one to comment on, or anyways.
Yeah, I think that one is a little trickier because
Right.
the classes we split apart because there seemed to be consensus on automatic, but not consensus
Right.
on manual. And so the thought was, well, the automatic will be easy to get in, and the other one we can fight about longer. But now it's gotten to a point where neither of them's in yet, so it's
Right.
not necessarily clear that
Right.
that was the right move.
My expectation would have been that we would have made that first, the consensus decision first, so then we could talk about the other. But what's happened is that both of them are being debated alongside each other as if they're like competing proposals, and it's gotten confusing. So
Yeah.
I you know, my recommendation to Herb was just that he should step in and say which one, you know, what he would like to happen, because that would help me know what to respond to.
Yeah. I also think this might be a good use case for putting a summary at the top of each one in terms of pros and cons. And you know, I know like some of them, there are things where I was like, we don't need that, and then someone's like, you use it on your own website, and I was like, oh, right. It was very clear that there was a use case there that I wasn't considering. It's just having that listed at the top. That's like, here's a use case. It's good.
Okay.
I think that
specific issues.
I think as actionable items, we should document the process, even if it's conditional, as in if this happens, then that, because it's apparent that it's not a single process that we follow. It depends on how things evolve. And it might also depend on the person that is actually suggesting the alternative. They might feel that it's a totally different issue, right? And specifically for the 2626 issue is stated, like the title is add contextual menu for quick access to blah, 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 whatever, right? So this is an issue that has a specific title. If it is an issue that has a problem listed, as in fix this, then multiple pull requests or solutions can be added. But then if we decide on a solution, then it becomes fix this by doing that. So it's a specific targeted solution. So that the title of the issue says, do this, like this is the solution. Whereas the discussion can start as what is the problem? Yeah, so it depends.
I would recommend that I mean, I think we have some actionable, like we want to draft up some guidelines on this. And I would think that we've only got 20 minutes left in this meeting, and we're 2 weeks from code freeze. So there's some issues that we could actually unblock. You had one, Greg, didn't you?
Yeah, so the main issue that I'm working towards is 1040, which is basically the inline form errors.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to do that, there's two other issues that need to be sorted. So I'm currently working on issue 5348, which is allow forms to set custom validation error messages, right?
Mhm.
And Robert, thank you for reviewing that, but I realized that something has broken, and I need some advice. I can fix it, but I need some advice about UX issues. So the way that the search form currently works, like if you go to /search, once you enable it, you have a search field, and then you have, oh, by the way, Jen, your keyboard is too loud. It's, yeah. Thanks. So we have the main search field and then a search button, and then there's a collapsible field set below it which says advanced search, and it has more fields, right? And it also has another submit button which says advanced search. So you have two submit buttons in the form, and the issue there is with the form validation. So how it used to work is that if you add a term on the main field and you click the advanced search button without filling anything in, that gets lost. So you get validation errors. I'll explain things like I'll add screenshots and workflow, like steps to reproduce the issue. But the main point is that previously, if you had a search term on the main field, expanded the advanced search and added more things, when you submitted the advanced search button, the term that you added on the main field was retained. Now it's not being retained, so it gets lost. But how I can share my screen, I think. Just let me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen for a moment and fire up the pull request sandbox, actually. Share screen, there it is. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
So let me see. So this is what I'm referring to. This becomes a required field now. So if I do this, I get a validation error, right? So if I do that, it works as expected. But this now has a field here. So if I, right, and do this. Oh. Oh, maybe I pushed the change. Sorry. But the point is that, or maybe these were not retained. I'll have to take another look. But my point and the decision that I want to make is, do we actually need two submit buttons here? Because they actually go through the same validation and submission process. And I was thinking that if we move, like there's nowhere that I know of that this advanced search thing becomes an individual thing that you can use on its own, like this form here. So I would prefer it if the search button here was moved below, or if these things were being added to the main search thing.
That might need a designer input, because if we're going to figure out, well, moving the search thing below creates a problem for people who aren't using advanced search. We would need to like deal with it separately for whether advanced search is available to the person or not. And usually that's a permission-based thing. It's not like a setting. So it's a little trickier. And then for when I also agree we should only have one button, but trying to figure this out is hard. And then if we did want to try and figure out how to take the advanced search stuff and push it closer to where the search box is, that is probably going to need someone with some design skills to figure out how to organize that in a way that's going to make more sense.
Yeah.
So can you
would
add
you-
the audience design label to that if it's not already on there?
Yeah, I'll quickly spin a demo. So I think that this thing was not there before. So this is probably one of my workarounds to retain this functionality here. Create a quick demo. But yeah, would you guys prefer it if I spin another issue to figure out that thing? It's going to be related to everything, but it's yet another rabbit hole, because the main issue was not that. The main issue that I'm working on is basically making these things required, automatically trimming values, things like that.
Yeah, I think
It-
having a dedicated issue for design, no, Robert says no.
No, I completely agree. It's-
Okay.
The original issue is setting custom validation error messages.
Yes.
This is redesigning search and advanced search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this works with a current pull request. If the original issue is this would say search field is required or something like that. And then if you have this, and then the example that I mentioned is, imagine for some reason another person has a search block here that is showing up here, right? Which search field is required? This is not called search field. It has a label of enter your keywords, right? So even the code had the inline comment, which was saying that the error message is confusing, and it basically comes down to 40 screenshots talk better, like this, like the reason for needing custom messages is that we have situations like this where it says, please fill in this field, which it's okay if it's an inline error, but bear with me. Like, I don't have an example, sorry. I thought I had an example where there was a required field and the error message was just generic, and it wasn't sort of like pointing to the actual field that was required, or what the error was for, basically.
So there are going to run into problems with required fields where the browser is going to tell you it's required, not the validation. So I don't know.
Yeah. So just let me stop sharing my screen if I can find. Yep. So here's the thing. In Drupal 8, they've implemented native HTML sort of like validation. And that was the problem that they were facing, that the errors were too generic anymore. And sometimes there were situations where you couldn't tell which error was for which field when they were required. And that's what I'm trying to so in Drupal 8, they basically implemented the inline error solution, and now they have this regression. What I'm trying to do is address the regression and then implement what they implemented in Drupal 8, so we don't have the regression. So yeah.
So we don't have any control over what the browser says, or
with the pull request that I have filed, we do.
Okay.
This is basically a custom error. It would otherwise say here the name of the field is search, so it would say the search field is required, but which search field, this one or this one, or
Okay,
if it was a search block here, or the search block search field.
The tricky thing with this search is that it doesn't matter any one of those, they do the same thing. But I could see how that could, like if you had built a view with an exposed filter that said search that was like a title field or something, that could still be confusing for people.
Yeah.
Another thing too is, so in Backdrop, we also have a required attribute on required fields. We could set up, and this might already exist, some form API abilities where you could define when the browser should add the required attribute and when it shouldn't, because we could have only our validation and not browser validation. So if there is something like in this case you could either put something in the top search field or you could put it in any one of those advanced fields. That top field isn't really required when you have advanced search turned on. We could have something like that where the browser won't stop you from submitting the form, but if you put nothing in any of those fields, we obviously still need an error that's like one of these fields is required. There might, and I don't think right now we have a way to make a field required that's not really required. That's not browser required. I think if you use the required property inform API, you get both the browser required attribute and the validation on the backend.
You get into states territory there where states cannot not let me rephrase that, because I've done a research a couple of weeks ago. In order to make the required thing conditionally apply, it's a bit tricky. It can still happen, but you have to dig down to the value of the, like states normally requires to enter the name of the field, whereas now you have to go down to undefined 0, something like the value, and rely on that. It's still possible. It's undocumented, and I found the respective articles in d.org. But again, it's sort of like we're getting down multiple rabbit holes in the form API quirks of what needs to happen. So yeah, anyways, I'll try to summarize and maybe even split a separate issue for those things so that it's clearer. But in the meantime, Robert, what I've done is, this thing was the addition of this thing, and how I discovered that this is a problem now was based on your feedback. So I think just let me find the specific bit of the. Sorry, I'm hogging this meeting. Yeah, so I think that I have to reread the issue. What you mentioned is that it was working for the main search field, but the error message was different if you omitted terms on the advanced search. And you said, shouldn't that be the same? I said, yep, that should be easy. Fixed it, and then you reviewed it. You said it's ready. But now I've found this regression where the terms are not being maintained, or they're odd. So yeah, anyways, I might either revert to the old way of doing things just for the sake of this little bit of functionality, but we'll see.
Hey, we've only got 3 minutes.
All right. Does anyone have any other UX or design issue that they would like us to review, even if it doesn't happen now, like that they want us to draw our attention to?
Well, I'll just mention that new hidden path content type that we've sort of made some progress. We have a pull request. Olaf has raised some questions. And we're going to need, I think to make this happen in this issue, we're going to need a fair amount of feedback. So I don't have time right now, but people can look at that.
Did we solve the issue where things wouldn't work on installation on the tag bot?
Yeah, Doc Wilmont figured that out. Surprise.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Doc Wilmont. Yes, so we have a working pull request. So should we just wrap up this meeting? It's 2 minutes to the hour. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the meeting. Everybody see ya in the